Michael, there you
Hey,
are.
David.
Great to see you. Connection's good.
Thank you.
You're looking good. And we got you up here. And you are live in front of our wonderful audience here in Calgary. Calgary, say hello. And Michael, I'm really glad. I just want to thank you for taking this kind of on short notice, and really honored to have you a part of the tour. It just honestly wouldn't be the same without it. And we got fantastic response last year when we had you Skyping in and doing this, the Q&A, and also on the videos and interviews that you and I have been working on and that Chris has been working on. And so we got a lot of people in the audience. Some people are very familiar with your work. Other people have never heard of your work before. I know based on the other presentations, we've got a lot of very enlightened people in the audience that have a lot of awesome questions. So we did a little brief introduction for you off before we got on the line. And we just kind of talked a little bit about it. But I wondered if we could just from you get sort of a summation of Path of the Fool and what this project entails, what it's about, what it means to you, and what it was that brought this, what it was that inspired you to do this huge body of work of going through 22 cards of the Major Arcana.
Well, thanks for inviting me to be part of your special event. And again, my personal thanks to everyone who came. It shows that you're up to speed with what's going on with all the great speakers. Big hi to Nazim, my old colleague. Nazim's had a big influence on my life, getting me started with PowerPoint even in the early days. That was like a big climb for me, a big sort of learning curve. And he was so sweet and showed me how to use it. And so turned out that I was one of the first people to be using it in the conspiracy, but it was actually he who showed me how to work that and helped bring visuals to my own sort of Irish Celtic, a slant on Atlantis and stuff like that, and catapulted me into the public eye. But yeah, you're right. Karen's been with me for a long time, and before I came online, about 1998, doing public talks and then being like on TV programs and stuff like that. But the tarot has been one of the first projects that I did, giving classes here and there throughout the world, but mostly in the Bay Area and Seattle as well. Way back when what you're watching now, Path of the Fool, was sort of started back then. And then in 2000, I did a series of 22 articles on the Major Arcana for a Bay Area magazine. And they featured other things. They featured astrotheology, but they also featured a monthly series of articles on the Major Arcana. And basically what you're getting in the Path of the Fool is those articles. Spring cleaned, updated somewhat. But it's that was 17 years ago. So this is something that's been with me. It's very, eclectic. The thing with this subject is it is a combination of mythology, the Joseph Campbell tradition, but it's also astrotheology, theosophy, numerology, geometry, esotericism of all kinds, bringing pieces of it together, not belaboring one part so that you bore people to death, with philosophy or psychology, but little bits of everything, as you know. It works really well that way. Not everybody can do that. So, as I said, 17 years ago, the articles got done, but I've been actually studying the tarot, for longer than that. So, it's all about finding the right way. Will this go into a book? Will this go into a video presentation? What exactly is also the right means of delivery with this subject so that it's not dry and so that it is current. And with Chris putting in these fantastic, clips and the whole graphic aspect of it as well, it was just a dream come true, because without that, the information may be interesting, but if it needs to be interesting to people, and then there's so much more we want to express than just my monologue. So the video does that, the graphics do that, the clips, the poetry, the music even. There's so much of a right brain, left brain thing going on. I've been wanting that for a long time. That was the theme behind Architects of Control and many other things that I've done. But it was very especially when you come to do the tarot, which is purely visual after all. What are we going to do now, a blackboard or something? I mean, it's just, no, it doesn't work. You've got to have visuals thrown in there to bring out the color and the hues and the depth of these cards, so that people who may be new to it aren't thinking of it just some card game for a bat crazy king in the Middle Ages or whatever. They are seeing, wait a minute, he's right, there are these recurrent motifs. What is this mountain? What is this dog that appears a lot? What are these colors all about? What are these recurrent triangles and squares all about? You know, there is something running through there that you may not realize, even though you may have studied the subject for a very long time in your life. So what we want to do is, you know, bring that into the foreground for people, you know, and start to help decoding it. Because one of the other things that's been interesting in my life, as you know, is how symbolism is used subversively on us by whatever, the powers that be, Big Brother, right? So it's always been on my mind that they use it. So it's always been on my mind to get us to use it. You know, in the I've been talking about subversive symbolism right from the off. That sparked a whole generation of other people who've been doing it in recent years and deeply dived into that subject, which is fantastic for me to see that. But then within the book of symbolism is a master chapter, right? And that's the tarot or the major arcana, the 22 cards. There's 78 cards in the whole tarot. And it is the perfect, when you open that chapter, then it's not just about tarot, we're talking alchemy, we're talking astrology, we're talking astrotheology, we're talking numerology, geometry, sacred geometry, theosophy, psychology, sociology, philosophy. I mean, there's nothing outside the tarot. This is the beauty of it. And yet it's simple. It's based on the simplicity of cutting, you know, like Chinese, I don't know what they call it, but you know, when you cut paper out, the origami, and you pull out a bunch of monkeys, you know, a bunch of dolls. It's like this, it's so simple, right? These little stick figures, these insect, you know, these sort of stick figures, these images. And yet, who would ever guess that behind that is the secrets of the building of the pyramid? You know, the whole thing, the connections of biology, you know, to psychology and to the world we live in. So it's a wonderful medium. Everyone's looking for a medium in which to communicate the great mysteries, you know, and for me, the greatest medium is the divination arts, astrology, tarot, because also it's practice. You've got a chart. You can do spreads for yourself, and you've got a date of birth. So we're moving into that direction where some of my mystery school curriculum applies to this path of the fool as well. So that people get intrigued to say, okay, that's very heavy and interesting, you know, it's a lot to contemplate. But wait a minute, no, there's this whole practical side about doing spreads for yourself, learning the, you know, the more divination aspects. So you can use the tarot to empower yourself and other people. So that it includes number, it includes astrology, and it includes means of not only getting in touch with your higher self, but even on a day-to-day basis, you know, thematizing your life and getting instruction in that way. You know, we haven't been getting into that as much as I'd like, but you know, in series that may follow it, you know, this is an endless thing. So we're dealing with the symbolism now, but tomorrow we can get into even, you know, things pertaining to people's own specific charts and what have you. A very, very interesting aspect, you know, for people to check out as well.
Well, that's fantastic. And Michael, what I've always really appreciated about this series in particular, it reminded me of one of your articles that you were mentioning, the article series you wrote about the inner zodiac. And this idea that, I mean, this is really the theme of this tour, is discover your universe inside and out. I mean, we know we're trying to learn, and all mainstream science is trying to penetrate the mysteries of the physical universe. But what we're trying to do is reflect back and go, well, let's talk about our inner universe. Let's talk about what's going on inside our minds, what's going inside our bodies. Is that somehow contributing to the creation and the manifestation of what we call Big Brother or the powers that be? And so I was wondering if you could comment on that concept of the inner zodiac and then how it maybe pertains to this journey that we're all on.
Yeah, I just want to close the program here. I just saw it was open. Okay, good. Absolutely. The whole mystery school thing I'm working with, you know, my mystery school and all my concepts about astrology, you know, partly it's polemical, it's partly a refutation against normal astrology, the principles of it, all that bogus stuff about magic rays and prediction, you know, and all that. You know, I'm not going to get into it here, but there's a lot of, you know, it's partly that. But I don't go mad on that either. That's just a more of a personal, for theory. It's the theorists, people who know about astrology. This is an argy-bargy that goes back, you know, and I've written on that. People can go to the Taroscope's website. And as you say, I would ask them to go there to read the article you're talking about, the inner zodiac, to get around this concept. So read that, people should read that, and then they'll have a much more understanding of what we're doing in the path of the fool, because ultimately the zodiac is within, it's an archetype. And if it's somewhere else, it's because we're putting it there. in a nutshell. We're putting it there. Consciousness is putting it there. And see, what this is all about is the broader concept of de-externalizing the forces that control you. You are in control. Like Paracelsus, Swalodovich, Madame Blavatsky, they've all said, you are the living zodiac. And other magicians have said that even the cards of the zodiac are stones of your inner temple. Always laying the emphasis on the internality of this. Because as we've said on interviews, as we've beaten it to death in the path of hope, the constituents of what we call psyche are many. They're manifold. Psyche isn't one thing. Personality isn't one thing. Soul isn't one thing. It's a myriad of things. And we're dealing with teaspoon levels in what we call the ego. The ego is the like we're going to be doing in the Hermit next. It's the peak of that mass. You know how much of that mountain they actually show in the Hermit? About this big at the bottom. But you can see that it's a mountain range. Well, where's the rest of it? Right? So the ego is the smallest component part of what our constituents of the broader psyche are, but those are never brought forth. And as you say, we've been looking into religion, we've been looking into science to do that, but really when you nail it down, if you really want to be brutal about it, they're pathetic. The way that they account for reality, cosmos, being, the sacred, is so uncommendable. Sages 10,000 years ago in the East were doing it. Western mystics were doing it, but they were all silent. So the divination tradition is it is the Western magical tradition. It is sacred because it's held itself together against the onslaught of materialism, the onslaught of positivism, pragmatism, and what other ism you've got. And all the academic criticism, right, and chicanery. And here is this precious thing. And in the core of it is this higher teaching of the inner zodiac, which is just simply a subject that was known to all the true, in other words, it divides the esoteric from the esoteric scholars. The esoteric tradition always knew that man contains the 12, or the 72, or whatever way you want to look at it. Like man is the tree of life, he's the Kabbalah, combining the 10 or the 11. There's different schools, different perspectives, but the basic idea is that man embodies these things. He's got to get in touch with it within instead of looking outwards. And then when he contacts it within, he's more aware of why things are the way they are in the external. So the scientist who's like a salmon, fighting the river, trying to get to the truth, trying to get to the knowledge, if he or she has no self-knowledge, they ain't got they haven't got much chances of knowing the bigger mysteries, and they are. As I said, they made a snail's progress. He who says I'm a scientist, he who says I am a philosopher, must have self-knowledge. And 99% of them don't. 9 times out of 10, they have very little self-knowledge. So the laboratory is an external laboratory, right? Not an internal laboratory. And we have to change that around. Then the science comes alive. Then you got your Walter Russell. Then you got your Nikola Teslas. Then you got your Nazim Harriman. And they don't need the degrees on the wall because they're busy turning you on to what it's all about, or real magic. So the scientist says, magic? What are you talking about? You're some sort of nut. Take off. They don't even see the magic. 30 years with a degree on them, they don't even see the magic in their own work. These Nazim got to come and put their head in it, right? Right. Nikola Tesla got to stick your head in it, right? Walter Russell got to show you what you missed. With all that authoritarianism and all that proving something to someone. It's all based in the lower ego. It's not based in really understanding man. It's not born out of any true humanitarian urge to change the way things are, to understand the nature of good and evil. I get with all the mysteria, all the higher and lowers, and all the concepts that we'll be constructing through that whole series. You see, that's what it's really all about. It's not just flirtation. The people who built the pyramid weren't flirting. They were trying to raise man up to what he really is. I mean, in fact, the ancients saw us as descended. Like your Michael Primo. You've had Michael Primo, right? Right. We may have devolved. Get your mind around that. The other Orthodox people may be completely arse about face, as they say in Ireland, right? We may have devolved. So the people who are building these models, who left us these legacies, They were trying to get us back up to the clarity of where we were, and the squeegee for the third eye. It's like, come on, get into it. And it's all contained within your own date of birth. And more than that, just, everybody knows the date of birth is theirs. But then they make a fundamental mistake when they go to the divination arts. They think it's out there, the zodiac's up there, right? No, you see what's happened? You see what's immediately insinuated itself as a falsity? The geometry of the universe is you, Adam Kadmon. You are the anthropos. And so I'm trying to turn astrology back to that. It's a very needed, sort of U-turn in which we realize just how powerful as navigators of our life we really are. That's a piece that's been missed. As the subject continued down through the decades and centuries, it got corrupted, it snowballed, and a lot of nonsense was attached to it, And so my work, as I'm, purist in this matter, is just to, scrape that off, clean it, purify it, and then present it to the world in a more pristine form, and a much more simple also form, getting rid of a lot of the paraphernalia. And again, as I say again, the nutshell of it, the core of it, is the realization that if the tarot can do something, if astrology can do something, it's only because your light is emanating out. You are the light that's shining through the stained glass window. That's what those tarot cards are. They're just panes of glass in the stained glass window, all different hues and colors, but the light is emanating from the person. Those are just reflecting what you have within yourself. So to me, it's a very fascinating subject. And it was a very long journey, a very strong desire of mine to bring it in a coherent, enjoyable form. And we were doing that years and years ago, and through the 90s with classes all over the world. Then the classes became the mystery school, online, so that people could take the class online, a series of classes, whatever. And then from there, we walked into, Path of the Fool book, then Path of the Fool series we're doing now, and there's another book coming out soon called Cards on Houses, which, as I said earlier, is about how this all works with the personal chart, And then we made, Chris and I were talking about even maybe doing a short follow series of again, demonstrating these techniques and stuff like that. So this is where we're at right now, and, we're doing the follow-up interviews of all the tendencies and miscellany with yourself, David, because even in that hour or 2 hours, we can't cram it all. So people need to listen to your interviews with me, because we go into then even deeper stuff that we couldn't digress. I don't like digressing, you see, in the main presentation, but with you, when we're talking, chatting, and reviewing, then we can really dig up even more stuff that we couldn't quite get into too deeply. And also questions from people that they have, they watch some of the shows and were really confused, or saying, wait a minute. You apparently seem to contradict yourself. Because contradiction is good. Mistakes are good, and contradictions are good, because I'm not an expert in any of this stuff. We're turning this Rubik's Cube around. We're looking at it in different ways. We're all together walking. It's like being in a museum walking around a China vase. I'm walking around this thing, and I will look at it in different ways, and I will turn it up, and I will turn it inside out. And we will chalk up a lot of different things, because it's not about a didactic, declarative point of view being asserted by some expert. I'm sick of experts.
Let's hear it for that.
Well, we're an expert, are you? The last thing we need right now is another expert. Because ultimately it's an authority, isn't it? When you really boil it down. When we go into the right brain, and when you open the door to the inner zodiac, which is really sort of in another terminology, it's the core self, it's the imperial self, it's the gateway to the right brain. Experts they're left at the door. I mean, they don't even get in. That's the camel in the eye of the needle stuff, right? You go in there naked. You go in there with mystery, with awe. Like you must be born again as little children. If you haven't got that awe and imagination, then this is not subject matter for you. There's a college down the street, and they jump you through a lot of hoops. Brilliant. Away you go. This is totally different. This is totally different. Look at a mandala. There's red, there's black, there's citron, there's orange, right? Look at a collage. It's multifarious. You wear different robes, you wear different clothes. The magician, the magi, the leader, the guide, the Merlin, he's going to adopt 101, guises to lead you on the road. One minute he's an old man, the next he's a young child, the next he's a pretty girl, the next he's an old crone, right? The guide, our guide, it's unbelievable when you get into it. And that journey of the fool, we're all on that journey of the fool together. So it's not about expertise in that technique sense. It's about a journey of exploration. It's about finding what, if I open this door, what will I find? It's a journey of exploration. I'm on it. And then, you put signposts for other people to go on that journey. But you cannot territorialize it. The tarot, these arts are not to be territorialized. They're nobody's property. They're everyone's property. The law is for all. So this is the other beautiful eclectic thing about it. And feedback from people is very, very important as well. I've been, as I say, working on books and a huge amount of notes for many years going back, and have meticulously put this together in a way that is easily understandable by anyone. Because it's essential that we use symbolism to open this this right side of the brain. Absolutely essential. We're starved for that in this world with all the other, modes of teaching. We need to open the deeper reservoirs of this ancestral knowledge that were closed off in the early days with our parents and with society. That's what this is all leading to, is reminding people that, each man that he's his own priest and each woman that she's her own priestess.
Wow, beautifully summed up, Michael, and it's been an honor to go on this journey, this Path of the Fool. I kind of feel like I'm on a mini Path of the Fool doing this tour, packing up my bag, having the stick on my shoulder. We just got to bring a dog. We didn't bring a dog with us, but we got this same unfolding happening where it's a learning process for all of us, and all of us have learned, and even the audiences that we've interacted with across Canada thus far. We've learned from them. They've stood up and they've been like, hey, have you noticed this? Did you know this? Did you know that you can see that same reflection in this language? Did you know that? And it's just amazing to be able to see that, I'm sure back when you started, Michael, probably you're talking to one person, maybe, and now all these people are switched on to this. All these people are opening up their minds to these things, especially young people. They're interested in it. And so even though you've got Hollywood, even though you got all the media propaganda out there trying to lead everybody back to living that whole material corporate life, it seems like it's just not taking anymore. And my final question to you is, what's your feeling on this age of revealing? Is the timing for why you came out with Path of the Fool now associated with your barometer on doing the talks you've done and getting the feedback you've gotten and kind of seeing where people's heads are at? Do you feel like this is an age of awakening and revealing?
It is because, and again, you have technical astrology one could get into, like with the position of Pluto. One could talk about it in terms of, where we've come since 2012. I just like to make it simple by saying that we are in a major Plutonic cycle, which is all about digging into the deepest roots and bringing them up, which can be uncomfortable for some. And the reason why it's uncomfortable is because, as you can see, all the other old Saturnian, solar, Martian systems are basically now being shaken up drastically till Rome's crumbling. They're passing away, and a lot of people can't get rid of that gig. They don't like that. They feel destabilized. Other people are more Uranian, more Neptunian, more Plutonic, and they can accept these changes because then secretly they've always been crying out for these radical changes. So it's like a kind of a gray area. We're in the age of awakening, there's no question in my mind about that, but there's a gray area where people feel slightly destabilized while the old passes away and the new hasn't quite come in yet. And they're very unsure, because remember, we have been under what can only be described as psychic dictatorship for centuries. We run into this in the female Illuminati. I've gone into it in my other work, that's more conspiracy related. And so once the sleeper starts to awaken, it's quite, traumatic in many ways. And then again, Big Brother, right, like Savoring and Brzezinski and others have even verbally said, they know that there's awakening coming on us. They know astrology, they know a lot of things. And they certainly have their fingers on the pulse of what's happening in the collective psyche. They know that one or two or three subjects and great teachers can awaken the world, right? So they see this awakening. So then what do? They try to pull the rugs, constantly continue making trauma for us so that we feel a lot more stabilized. But once you start to see this puppet show for what it is, then you realize, wait a minute, there's nothing to fear but fear itself. And you step out of fear, and then you say, okay, I'm kind of in this neutral zone, and I've studied everything that's out there. I feel I'm pretty much up on what's going on in the alternative movement or whatever. But my point is, well, do you really? Because one of the other secrets of spiritual life is not just the first pass on a thing, it's reiteration, it's revisiting. And so part of the process is to go over again. You know, if you have a favorite food, you just don't eat it once. You eat it all the time, right? Or you eat it as much as you can. So get out your favorites again. Savor it, fondle it. Don't just, oh yeah, I read that, and I kind of know, I kind of know. Again, step out of that. The first part where we were, like from, say, the last 10 years since 2000 changeover, was or since 9/11 or whatever date you want to put on it, was for getting a first pass at all of the different subject matter. And listening to all the different voices. Where we are now is for a sort of recap. You know what I mean? It's very healthy to go over your favorites again. Don't assume that you know it all. We're doing that in the Path of the Fool. And bring out those works again. The Ralph Ellis's, the Nazeems, as I say. My work. Bring it out again and review it. And start to go through it, again, like the female Illuminati. It's a new approach, a new aspect, a new perspective on stuff I've been doing, for a long, long time. But there's always a new perspective. There's always a new way to look at a thing. And so never forget that in that moment when you're feeling there's nothing, you know it all, or, you're bored, or, where do I go from here? Always remember that you may have moved too quickly through some of the most fantastic stuff. Go over it again. Check those sources. My work, for instance, is full of resources, Go and read the Gerald Massey's. Go and read the Alvin Boyd Coombs. Go and read the Ayn Rands and all the rest of it. You see, so it's like a never ending. And it should never be ending. The journey of discovery doesn't have an ending. It's a journey of wonder. And as I said, a childlikeness. Always realize your limitations. Always have respect and love for wisdom and knowledge. And don't necessarily be conceiving in, I just keep going, but I don't seem to get anywhere. You are getting somewhere. And remember the age that you're in. Your forefathers didn't have this time. They didn't have access to all this information and knowledge. No way. It's a very young thing. All the knowledge that we're delving into is a very young, even the venue for it, like what you're doing with modern knowledge. People should realize how young this kind of thing is. It's not that old. We get that into our head thinking, this is, common. It is not common. It's actually a new thing, and a new phenomenon, really. And so my message to people is to go over it again. Savor it. Really savor it this time. And get into the ingredients. More into the roots and the ingredients of all of these fantastic subjects, so that you're so armored, so psychically immune, you see, that no critic, no authority figure can ever shake you again. You've really got it mastered.
Well, thank you for that, Michael. And we got about 15 minutes, so what I'm going to do for questions, we do have our first question ready to go, but if you have a question, just come and line up right here by this door. And we're going to get to you as quickly as possible. Just ask that we keep the questions short and sweet, if you don't mind. We'll try and get as many as we can. And I'll pass it over to our first question here.
Michael, Marty Leeds here. Thank you so much for your work. I really appreciate it. You just nailed it, everything you just said. Thank you very much. Just a quick question. For me, looking at the geometry and the philosophy, the theosophy, all of this stuff led to an understanding of a great spirit and a personal relationship with that. Where has this led you? What's your personal, spiritual quest?
I'm a personalist, so I don't talk about my own personal life in that sense. I like to stick with the knowledge that I'm studying and have a professional persona to do. That's more than enough. As to my own beliefs, I outlined them in my book, Disciples of the Mysterium. And that book people can read, but it's advocating the philosophy known as personalism. And I didn't invent it, it's kind of been out there. And this or that philosopher, some are personalists, some are not. You could say that maybe Nietzsche was a personalist. But not all philosophers are personalists. And so in that book I go into more, where I'm coming from. It's loosely sort of, I would phrase it as mystical naturalism. And that's about all I'll say right now, because, that's again, as a person, that's the whole premise of it, is that, you keep, you have a certain privacy of not only, I'm not talking about privacy in daily life, I'm a social as the next person, but I am talking about, and I'm underwriting this, footnoting this, because when people read the book, they'll see the whole philosophy unpacked. So it's not just some statement I'm making. There's a very deep need for personalism in our world today, as much as there's a certain need for a certain camaraderie and a certain collectivism, that's always necessary and will always be there. But then there's a sort of dividing line, where this other level of personal intimacy and privacy come in, and it's very hard to explain in a thing like this, because people can pick it up wrong. So the book was written to really advocate what that is and why we need it. But in short, I can say that personalism is unusual to the degree that it is not in the world today. And as anything more than a description. My book is one of the first that actually brings it up as a sort of an ideology, so to speak. And the reason that's not a bad thing is because I believe that religion as we know it, philosophy as we know it, and science as we know to a degree, science less so because it will always remain collective, but philosophy, mysticism, that kind of thing, and the religions of the world are heading toward personalism. Personalism is like the outcome where we're going. So I'm optimistic to that degree that personalism is sort of the denouement of where a lot of the other disciplines that we're used to for the last thousands of years are heading. And again, I point out the reasons why I think this in the book. They're very intricate, they're very deep and meaningful. And it's all basically about empowerment. The psychology, the psyche, is an attribute of the individual. Right? We talk about subjects and objects, right? Well, really, it's all subjective because, you'll see what I mean in a minute, but when we say about, you gotta be objective. Yeah, well, if I'm objective, then my body inhabits the objective world. So I have to be objective about myself, but that's a paradox since I'm the subject. In fact, the subject-object dichotomy is actually nucleated the moment one hand touches the other. I've just nucleated the subject-object dichotomy. The object has touched the subject, but the subject can feel the object. Well, that's not meant to happen. I thought we live in a subject-object world. There's you and me. There's uppers and downers and all the rest of it. We love our dualisms. Well, I can nucleate it the very moment that one hand touches the other, because this hand is not the only hand feeling. The one being touched can feel the touch. So it must be an object, or this is a subject, or this is the subject, or this is the object. It nucleates. They're both gone by the simple action of touch, by the simple action of perception. So once you've understood this, we realize then that the subjective is much more important than has actually been told to us. In fact, sometimes when people are talking about subjectivity, it's almost with a bit of a slur, it's almost with a bit of a demeaning. We live in a culture like that, whereas other cultures, like the Tao people, and many others can mention, they don't think like that. The ancient Druids didn't think like that. They knew about the sanctity of the self. And even the word hermeticism, earlier we were talking about the Tsarion and the Hermetic arts. We're doing the Hermetic arts, numerology, geometry, whatever it is. What is the secondary meaning of the word hermetic? Right? Sealed, closed. Now that part is kind of being shoved aside in our furore to study, delve, unpack, but then the privacy aspect, the real sacredness of it, has kind of been a little bit blurred and lost. And so, to answer your question, it's like, I preserve that about myself, my own beliefs, because I don't believe, there's a sort of authoritarianism there. You either agree, if I say what I believe, do you believe in God, do you not believe in God? The moment that a person who's well known in the media makes a statement like that, then all you have is people agreeing or not agreeing, and some people might be saying, well, if he believes it, I'm going to believe it. So you've invaded their personal private space. And if I say, no, I don't believe it, then they go, well, see, I'm going to say I don't believe it. Because people habitually look up. They look to it by they're desperate. So I've always not spoken about my personal life and not about my personal beliefs. What I'm doing is investigating belief. I'm investigating the sacred. I'm investigating the world I live in, right? And I'm investigating selfhood. But I don't, I draw the line of actually getting into, my own personal, thoughts and patterns and all that. And again, based in a very strong philosophical reason why that is. And, again, people can pick up Disciples and Mysterium and check it out and see if it's something that they'd like to investigate further.
Cool. Thank you so much. That was a great answer. I appreciate that. So.
Hi, Michael. Oh, thank you.
There you go.
Hi.
My name's Ashley Dicko. Pleasure to virtually meet you. So out of all the questions that burn in my soul, this is a huge one, and I would only ask you this. So one thing that I could never really understand about just our reality, I suppose, is that when you look at the current state of our world right now and just everything in terms of how there's so much separation and the low vibration, competition, everything like that. But yet you look at the natural state of human beings and we're very loving naturally and very kind. It's more of our natural state. And you think of love in how high of a vibration or how powerful love is, and yet somehow darkness has been able to rule over our planet. And I don't know, sorry, I'm like shaking. Sorry, I don't know, I'm like so nervous. I don't know how that's possible where darker, lower energies could take control over this planet, or like the 0.001% of darkness can somehow get like a grip or hold when you have so much love. And yeah, it just seems like, was there a perversion at some point of the spiritual laws or of esoteric knowledge where they were able to manipulate it? They basically put the rules in their favor, so the game was rigged in a sense? Like, how did that happen?
Well, it is. Thanks for your question. Thanks for being part of the conference. And that's such a deep and important question. It's something that's on my mind almost every day. How did this aberration take place? And it is part of the external control. But what has happened is external forces of control have just co-opted a psychological, I think the root of your question here, what you're getting at, is really a psychological defect. And that is that when we use the word love, it is the single most misused word in the English language. Often when you really closely look at what we say is love, it's really false love that we're looking at. In the relationship of parents to children, in man-woman relationships, in countries, in the relationship of the God master to the slave believer, and all of this stuff. In short, there is a thing called love, but it is love ultimately for one's own self. Now, I know that sounds like a cliche, but really what has happened is the real love is remember I was saying earlier to David there that when we talk of psyche, we're many people in one. In other words, what I mean is we have many hemispheres within. But we have made sure that we have caged 90% of our own selves, which is collectively known as the shadow. Everybody's talking about the shadow self. It's not one self, it's hundreds of selves. It's hundreds of little children that we weren't allowed to be when we were young and explored them. That's all been caged for that one person that the parents approved of, or that society approved of. So we are living a very emaciated, how can I say it? It's like we've been skinned, we've been fleshed. The person we are is a very small shadow of who we really could have been had we lived in a kind of a different society, a different life. And so all those parts that are in shadow, that our shadow selves, to use the Jungian term, they're in the darkness of unlovedness. And the part that is in the light is just a little tiny mannequin, barely functioning, frightened, traumatized, handpacked, picked upon, comparing him or herself with everyone who comes in front of them, deeply lost in desire, deeply confused, seeking through all the different falsities out there, or the religious paths or whatever it might be. And then talking lots of words about love. And then, as you say, then for all that talk and all that rhetoric, we don't see any love in the world. You're going to tell me that, animals are being loved? Or that nature, we're in the 6th extinction phase right now. Literally millions of species have been killed and more are, it's every day. Where's our sensitivity? Where's our love for the we call them lessers, what a joke, for the other sentient life forms. So the real, but you see, that's because we have care for that. We have care for another person as they must have care for us. Love, however, is almost strictly an internal process. Once you've got it, something different happens and your caring expands to a very special degree. But with that care of other people, or care of the world, or care of animals, is a kind of lots of boundaries as well, because we're protecting the self. Now, we haven't been taught any of this. We don't know any of this. We're picking this up on our own, like you are, and I am. We're picking up the slack in our older age, spending our money, going to conferences, reading the books. Why the hell were we taught this in 18 years when we was at school? What was our elders doing? Well, what they were doing was putting us like a man in the iron mask, telling us all the wrong bad habits. You call that love? Again, it's false love. So we have to pick up the slack on our own, isn't it? We got the fight, and then you know what we do? We go through all the sick relationships, we go through all the bullshit, all the, the heads being beaten off the walls of the universe to find out what? What is false love? See, my work is all apophatic, it's all deconstructive. It's all about getting rid of the lies so that then the truth can come about. The truth isn't going to come and hit you in the face. It's through the painstaking deconstruction of falsity, getting rid of what is not true to find the truth. And we've never been taught that. The Steiners taught it, the Krishnamurtis taught it, one or two others have taught it. But mostly it's the other way, where we just gain more knowledge, gain more, find out more, just glut ourselves with information, and we're starving ourselves spiritually. Because we haven't known what it's really all about. In this apophatic movement, which is what we're doing, is deconstructing all the matrix of lies. That's an act of love. Because what it really is an act of empowering yourself, gaining the psychic hygiene, so that all your body and your mind and your heart are working openly and freely. We'll be talking about this in the Hermit card next. Where the bioenergy, all parts of you, are flowing with the bioenergy. That is the act of love. That's the real act of love. Is when the bioenergy that you were given, that animates your spirit, is flowing very strongly. And so that you have a certain willpower, a certain dynamism, not to conquer and subdue other people, but to have a higher sense of self-esteem, right? Or what they call a statement of higher value. And then through that model, when you're that person, then through your model, you affect other people. Then you can raise the kids properly. Then you can change the minds of the masses. When you walk out there on crutches, how much can you help the rest of the world? This is some intellectual illusion that most people are under. Hoping that by waving a few placards and doing a few bits of good here and there, that you're really going to change anything. The only person you can change is yourself. And then there's a process of how to do that. And the ultimate goal of that is self-love. It's self-love in the beginning, self-love in the middle, and self-love at the end. But when we don't have the self-love, what we have in its place is self-loathing, self-hatred. And that will never change anything. It will drag the world into the state of decay that you see it's in.
Woo! Thank you.
We've only got a couple more minutes, Michael, so we've got a few questions. We'll go through them a little quickly here. Go ahead, sir.
Hi, Michael. My name is Joseph Samari. Been following you for a lot of years. I'll try to keep this quick. So I just had some questions about, I know maybe a mentor of yours was Jordan Maxwell. I may have heard Santos Bonacci speaking of this, but something to do with changing your, changing your birth record to say that you're a live human, and promissory notes, signing VC in front of your name. Just wondering if I get some clarity on any of that.
I'm not the expert on that. That's not my subject, so I can't comment on that.
Okay, fair enough. Sorry. Yeah, okay. Just the next one. Cool. No problem.
Hello, Michael. I've been following your work since about 2004. I want to thank you for all of it. My question, I want to preface it by saying that it's not prejudiced. Nietzsche, in his Genealogy of Morals, speaks about ressentiment as origins of religion and monotheism and such. In lieu of the Jewish supremacy that we see in media and banking, I would like to hear what you have to say about the Jewish question.
What was your name?
My name is Marty.
That's an awesome question, Marty, and I would go to my, have you been to my forum?
No, but I can.
Yeah, go to the MSAR forum, MTSAR forum.
Will do. I realize this is a big question,
There's a
so.
thread there on Zionism that's been going for a long, long time.
Awesome.
In short, because that's a huge question what you're asking there. But in short, there is ultimately a difference. First of all, I don't believe that the ultimate conspiracy that we know is going on in the world is ultimately a Jewish one.
Agreed.
Jewish people are involved, or I would say more Zionistic people are involved. I could stand here for over 20 minutes and recite the mentors of mine that are Jewish. The Eric Froms, the Leonard Cohens, the Neil Diamonds, the Paul Simons, and the list goes on. Sigmund Freud, even, and so many others, Otto Rank. I mean, I just could not stop in 20 minutes. So I'm not a person who only says it's a Jewish conspiracy. But the Jewish conspiracy is very much part of it, right? And it is for ordinary Jewish people to wake up to how they've been had, just like we've been had. And that is happening to a degree, by the way. If you go to that thread, you'll see fantastic, rebuttals now by Jewish people who are waking up to this, to realize they've been had. And we all need to do that. We're in the early stages of really awakening. The Muslims are, the Christians are, the atheists are, and the Jews are as well. We all need to wake up to realize that the small predatory group at the top, right, the Black Lodge, as I call them, atomists is another term I've used. This group is a predatory group that basically has everyone at loggerheads. And then in female Illuminati, if you go to that website, there's an article, read that. That goes into the whole matrix of it. It's a very short article, but it expresses very clearly how this whole pyramid of control got started. With your crypto Jews and your
Ashkenazi and all that sort of stuff.
That Ashkenazi, the Khazars, for instance, and even the Jesuits, don't forget, because your Adam Weishaupt, who's head of the Illuminati, was also of Jewish ancestry. Your who's the other character? Oh yes, your Ignatius of Loyola, right? Who's well in a proto kind of Illuminati. See, not only was he a Catholic Jesuit, but he may have had Jewish blood. So to trace back and get into the Jewish question is monumentally important. But you must do it alongside you're studying other things as well. You can't just become monomaniac on that, which a lot of my colleagues and friends, they get stuck there, you know what I mean? They couldn't see further than that. And of course that's wrong, and that leads to fanaticism and another kind of tyranny. We don't want that. We're not looking for this great knowledge to uncover tyranny so we become tyrants ourselves. We're looking for knowledge, and there's many, many great avenues to learn this information and find out what really Judaism is. Did you know that real Judaism is nothing more than Druidism? Corrupted Druidism, I might add, but it's actually from the West. It's from Ireland and Scandinavia. What the Jew, you won't find a Jew will know that, but it's a fact. So there's a tremendous unpacking that needs to be done. Go to the Female Illuminati website, read the article, go to the MSI forum on the Zionism page. There's a lot of good stuff there.
Thank you.
And you can get back to me. You can email me if you have other questions about that. You've got queries.
Awesome, thank you.
Let's do it.
All right, well, Michael, we're a little bit short on time. We could do this all day. This has just been fantastic, and I want to thank the audience for participating in this. If you do have any questions that you just wanted to send in via email, you can send it in to Michael. You can send it over our way. We're going to be working on the next card in the Path of the Fool series. It's going to be the Hermit, and we'll be doing some subsequent follow-up interviews on that as well, which I very much look forward to. So, Michael, thank you so much for your time and for being a part of this event today. Sounds good. All right. Talk to you later, Michael.
Okay.